Hi guys, it's Kelly and I'm back with another video. This is the second video, so a continuation. We'll do a quick little recap here. We're using lots of honeybee products. The hummingbird and the bugs are in the previous video. And then all of these lovely layers, florals, the coneflower, the water lily, what else do we use? The pansy, they're all included here. So here are the cute little insects we made in the previous video with all of these iridescents. I will link them to that video in case you want to check that one out. But today we're going to be doing all of the coloring of the flowers and then getting our cards together. So it's another long one. Here, this is the actual sunflower, Lovely Layer sunflower. However, I wanted to, I don't know why, okay, y'all, bear with me. I wanted to create a flower that hummingbirds are actually kind of drawn to. And so I wanted to do a zinnia, which has very similar kind of like stacked petals like this, like a sunflower, but they don't have a zinnia. And so I used the centers from the anemone, the Lovely Layers anemone, to try to create it. Let me just go ahead and tell you, I should have left it to the experts because this flower gave me nothing but a hard time. But I am going to show you, and if you've watched any of my previous videos with the Lovely Layers, you know that this is how I do my coloring. I layer my pieces, so I layer one layer over the base, and then I use my lightest color to mark where my shadows should be. And then I do the next layer, and so on and so forth until all my layers are done. Now, this part is a little bit time consuming. And since we're coloring 4 different flowers, I'm not going to show you this every time. When we get to the flower and we start the coloring, this portion will already be done. So I just wanted to explain it with this first one. Now, since I'm not doing a sunflower and I am trying to make this look like a zinnia, I looked up the colors for those and I decided that I was going to do a zinnia that had a pink, kind of like closer to the base of the flowers. They were pink and then they spread out into yellow. This, I'm showing you the coloring because genuinely this is how we started out. And I think it's really important to leave in the things even that we change. Ended up competing with my hummingbird quite a bit. Here I have to take a break and refill my RVO2 because it is looking a little sad there. So I just kind of stepped away for a second, the magic of video editing, and then I re-inked it, and now we're good to go. It's working much better. But in blending 2 color families, I chose an RVO2 and a YO2 to blend them together. So I'm just kind of filling in those 2 colors to get a good blend. And then I'm going to go back and now I'll start adding a little bit of darker shading. This top piece is kind of like my figure it out piece to see, you know, the different layerings that I need to do to kind of get the look that I want. So that way on the consecutive pieces, I already have a game plan going forward. Ultimately, this flower, it wasn't that it wasn't pretty or that I didn't like the way that the coloring came out. It just, it was too much to go with my hummingbird because my hummingbird is already pink, blue, green, gray. So 4 different colors. And it has the shimmer. It has that iridescence that we were kind of trying to achieve. So he is supposed to, or she, you know, whichever she feels, is supposed to be the star of the show. And I felt like my flower, because it was larger, you know, hummingbirds are tiny. They're very small. So because my flower was already larger and it had some like more complicated coloring, it was kind of stealing the show from my hummingbird. So I ended up changing it and making it more of a purple color, but you'll see that later on. But I colored it the same way that I did this one. I just wanted to show you this one because this is where we started and you will see this final product. It just won't be on the card. So I kind of go back and forth when we're mixing color families. We want to look at that last number on a Copic marker. So the 2 is what I was looking at, the YO2 and the RVO2. Those are the 2 that I was looking at, but it does require a little bit of finesse to kind of figure out how much blending you need to do to get them to work. These kind of bottom layer petals, it's not that they don't matter, but it's easier to blend because you don't see the full petal. You're only going to see a portion of the petal. They're kind of hid behind. The other thing that I like to do when I'm doing my lovely layers is I like to make sure that I color all of the edges because I don't want any of that white peeking through. So as I go through and do my coloring, this is sped up, by the way, because you watched me do that whole first one regular. So this is sped up. If you're watching on YouTube, you certainly can slow it down. I'm just going to sound like I'm underwater. No big deal. Mute me. You don't need to listen to me anyway. So each time I'm going through and checking to make sure that everything is lining up the way that I need it to be, and then I'm making, adding any color where any white may be peeking through or where the colors aren't matching up. And then for this furthest background, this base piece, it really, you're going to see so very little of it, just kind of like the tips of the petals. But we're going to go through and do each of them. Now, I will tell you if you have some questions about the coloring or you're a little bit unsure that you, like the water lily, for example. Okay, well, that's the last one we're going to color. But I did this water lily as like pink fading into white. But let's say you want to do a like a darker pink. I have a video where I've done that in another video. I've used the same lovely layers, just a different color combination. I've also used the pansy in another one, though the pansy is pretty much spot on for the way that I colored it before. It's a violet and a yellow. This is the first time that I'm using the sunflower, and then I didn't even use it as a sunflower. And then what was the other one? 3 cards, 4 cards. Where's my 4? Oh, the coneflower. I think I do have a video with the coneflower. So here was the thought process with the center of the flower. Zinnias have in their center kind of like a really kind of bright yellow, kind of fluffy petals in the center. So I was trying to mimic that with the stippling while still adding some shading. And then they're very, very dark in the very middle. Looking at this now, I probably could have left it just like this, like just use the 2 sunflower pieces. And it's still not going to look super sunflowery-ish because of the way that I colored it. But I didn't. I chose to use these extra pieces that I cut from the anemone to create kind of a super dark center. And actually, I played around with this a lot. And this is what I said, like in the beginning, when I was like, I should have just left it to the professionals. I really should have just left it to the professionals, because you'll see, even to the point where I'm putting the card together and I've completely switched my color combination for the floral, I'm still messing around with it. Like, I should have just left well enough alone, but I didn't. Lesson learned on my end. So now we're just going to go ahead and build these. I prefer to use liquid glue when I'm, building up my die cuts, because I feel like it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So I like to put them down. And then even if I put them down like a smaller piece with tweezers, I like to put them in hold them in my hands so I can scooch them around. It's easier to scooch them with my fingers, so that I can make sure everything is lined up. The other thing I will tell you, as a little tip when you're trying to get them lined up, find one wonky edge. Like, that's what I did with the sunflower. I found one petal that had like a little bit of a wonky edge that was on all 3 of the layers. And then that's how I lined it up. Every single time I looked for that petal, and it makes it so much easier and less frustrating when you have multiple layers. Did you see me there just now trying to, again, see if I wanted to change the way that it looked? I could not help myself. I could not stop messing with it. So yeah, just find one that has a wonky edge, and then it gets easier to line them up. I do my stencils the same way. So here is this quote-unquote zinnia that we've made, and then I will show you one leaf of each of these. Now, some of the sets, if you're not familiar with the lovely layers, some of them have 1 leaf. The sunflower has 1 leaf, but some of them have 2. The coneflower does. I believe the pansy has 2 as well. The water lily only has 1, but that's because it's a lily pad. So I use the same greens for all of them just to kind of keep it simple. I chose a yellow-green combination, and for each one of them, there's embossing If you've never used Lovely Layers, then you would not know, but they have really beautiful detail embossed into all of their layers. That's kind of how you know what's going to show in the layers, is you'll see the embossing. And so I'm just following along the embossing to add my shading, but I did use these same yellow greens, which is a YG67, a YG17, a YG03, and a YG01. So now we're moving on to the Coneflower, and this is the one, because again, you guys, you know me, if you watch my videos, I can't help but like do the research. So I looked to see what flowers butterflies were attracted to. Turns out coneflower. That's how I narrowed it down. So my butterfly, if you recall from the previous video, is like a yellow, orange, and pink combination. So I chose to do my coneflower like a really bright pink. And I am making it a little bit darker than the pinks that you saw me use with the Zinnia, because I didn't want them to look the same. You know, I'm using a lot of pink in my florals today, and so I wanted each of them to kind of be a little bit different. So this combination is an RV69, an RV19, an RV06, and an RV04. Again, as I'm going through and doing the layers, the ones that are in the background, like the base, are going to be darker than the ones that we have on top. The ones we have on top are going to be a little bit lighter because they're catching more light. But just going to go through and do each of these. So with that said, after this flower is done, we will be moving on to ones that I have previously colored before. And if you've watched my videos, then you know that I've previously colored these. I will do my best to link the other videos that they were in. And to be honest, I think the Pansy was in my mom's Mother's Day card for last year. No, maybe it was her birthday card. Anyway, whichever it was, I will try to make sure that I link that because it does have some other lovely layers in it as well. So I had to take a little break. I'm doing my voiceover during Jelly Bean's nap time, and she has not been feeling well lately. I shared that, guys, with you guys recently. I clearly have her cold. I was what was I doing yesterday? Oh, I had the Altenew retreat, the Secret Garden retreat. And so I was teaching, and I think like 3 times I had like a coughing fit, and thankfully I had hot tea sitting there. But doing all of the talking, I think, is what, started the coughing fit. But anywho, she has not been feeling well. And so when I do voiceovers while she's taking her nap, I always have her monitor in here. I just have it on silent. I can't even remember the last time she woke up from a nap after like a half an hour, but sure enough, today she did. She woke up, and she was unhappy, as we all are when we get barely a bit of a nap, when we need a nap, right? So when I sat down to do my voiceover, my husband was not yet doing work in the yard. Not in the backyard underneath my window anyway. And now he is. So hopefully it will not take too long, because I cannot wait to do my voiceover. I have to do it now while she is actually sleeping. Oh, here. So we've put the coneflower together, and then I could see that I missed that little bit of white. So I'm just going to go back in and grab that, and then I'll put the center on. The coneflower was the first Lovely Layers die that they released, and it's still such a great one. So good. So this one's really simple to put together. That's all of it. And then I will, like I said, I'll, be showing you the coloring of one of each of the leaves, but all of the same color combination. So anyway, she has just not been feeling 100%. Understandably, when you get sick, sometimes we all get a little bit cranky, but she has not been sleeping well, and she's had such an attitude. Like, I've already done this. Like, she's my second kid, so, I've been around the sun one time or two with a 2-year-old. And, but my son was not as sassy as this baby is. Like, she is so sassy, and not even just when she doesn't feel good. Like, in general, she's just a sass monster. When you tell her something, like, people joke about that, like, your second born's feral. But I think it's true, guys. You tell me, tell me, those of you that have kids, was your second born feral, like a feral cat? Because mine is wild. We're moving on to the Pansy now. It has that centerpiece that is colored yellow. And then I did the violet combination of V09, a V06, a V04, and a V01. But so there would be some separation between the back petals and the front. I also included a BV11 in the front, and that was to help blend in the yellow, because pansies have those really beautiful yellow centers. So it kind of separates the two. Also, the BV is a great like intermediate color, like go-between color between the yellows and the purples, because normally, you know, when we would be talking about like color theory and stuff, I would tell you yellow and purples are complementary colors, and you know, if you mix them together, you're going to get brown. But sometimes, I mean, obviously it works in nature. This is how pansies look, right? But sometimes you can make it work if you can find that go-between color, or if you can find a color that is kind of like an in-between. So it's still a purple, like that V01 is still a purple, but it's very much on the pink side, and pink and yellow do go together. So having that be my lightest color, and then having that BV, which, you know, tends a little bit more on the desaturated side, really does kind of help blend them together. So experiment with the colors that you have to see, you know, what will work for you. But this did work fairly well for me to get the look that I wanted for the pansies. So anyway, she is... like, she'll just look you'll tell her not to do something, and she will look you dead in the face and do it anyway. And it's not like we're not a family of consequences. It's not like we're just letting our children run amok and do whatever they want. She just, at this age, they are fearless, man. They are fearless. So it has been quite the wild ride. She's in swim lessons now. I can't remember if I told you guys that. So she is doing her swim lessons, but we have to swim with her. And so today, some people are not going to find this funny. I find it comical because obviously he wasn't hurt. And he then did correct her and tell her, like, we don't hit. But Peanut did not want to go to her swim lessons with her. And it was my husband's turn to swim with her. So he's like, I'll just take her by myself and you can stay home with him. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. And he was like, no, it'll be fine. I'll try it. So she wanted me to go. She had me walk her out to the car and me buckle her in. She's very much in her mommy stage right now. And so I did. He sent me a message on the way, and he was like, she is still screaming down the house. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, we should have switched. You should have stayed home with him, and I should have gone with her. But anyway, so when he got home, I was like, how did swimming go? And he was like, she punched me in the face. I'm like, I'm sorry. He is like, the point in the swim lessons when they have to go underwater, she told me she didn't want to go underwater, and then I took her underwater, and when she came up, she popped me in the face. I was like, oh my goodness. So then I was like, well, how did the changing go? You know, because now that's part of the problem. Before, like when we would both go, this is the first time one of us has only gone. When we would both go, then one of us would change her while the other person who was in the pool got changed. So he was having to do both by himself. And he was like, the changing was fine. I asked her, do you want to change first, or do you want to change after Daddy? And she said she wanted to change first. So she tried to open the door while he was changing. You know, of course they do. That's what kids do. They try to run out, you know, underneath the door of the like dressing rooms if you take them in there. That's just what they do. Side note, back to the card. So here I am using the V09 to go over those embossed lines that the dies put in to put the kind of veining into the pansy. And I really think this is what kind of takes it up over the edge into a more realistic look. Love this particular die. So then he said after they got done changing, she walked out and announced to the entire place, you know, because they're obviously not the only kid there to have their swim lessons, announced to the entire place that she saw Daddy's butt. And some very kind gentleman started laughing and said, I'm sure it was a very nice butt, to which my husband replied, it's glorious. Thank you very much. So like they will just they are brutal. 2-year-olds will embarrass you. They will put you in awkward positions. They will test your patience to the bitter end. She is just very firmly in her 2-ness, and it is a challenge. Maybe girls are different than boys. That's the only thing that I can come down to, or she just has a crazier personality than he does. I'm not sure. So we've put together the full pansy. This is kind of like a smaller little side bloom. And this top green layer is a portion of the layer for the side bloom. I didn't feel the need to put this over and kind of mark where the shadows were going to be, because I knew that I could kind of eyeball it, and then if I needed to go back in, I could. And you'll see here after I get this thing put together that I do end up going back in just to make it a little bit darker where it needs to be. But I use the same color combinations for these as well as the rest of the other pansy. I think in the print out the lovely layering guide that they have on the website, this one actually does have a little bit of yellow in it, but it did not seem worth it to me, honestly, like to have to do all of the blending. So I just made it purple and called it a day. So pretty much we're only making pink and purple flowers, right? Especially after you see the one with the makeshift zinnia that I just made up. That one was a little bit of a combination of, it ended up being like a purplish orange combination because I changed it so much. I literally could not leave that thing alone. I don't know what was wrong with me. Like I just kept, because you guys know my little motto is, everything is fixable. So I just kept trying to make it work because I'd already colored it and I'd already glued it together and I'd already invested so much time. And like I said, not an ugly flower, just not the flower for this project. So maybe I'll just set it to the side and I will use it on a different project. Because I'm still a firm believer in, everything can be used. Even when we did the experimenting for the iridescence in the prior video, what you guys saw me using was like scraps, because I'm cheap and I'm not wasting like a full sheet. I'm just not. So here, this is the water lily. I told you guys earlier that I opted to color it to where it was like a brighter pink that kind of faded to white. And so in order to do that, I'm using an RV04, 02, and 00, RV00. And with this one, the layering portion is a little bit trickier because the edges are white. So I did the same thing, like I did all of the outlining in the lightest color, but I did make a mistake, and I'll point it out when we get there. With this one, with this smaller water lily, part of the layering is actually these leaves, like the bottom, what I imagine will grow into the full lily pad once it gets larger. But this is the 4th layer, so in order to put it together, like this does have to be colored. And then it has these 3, you can see them, those 3 little teeny tiny ones that I colored to be the lightest color. Those actually go on the end, so it looks like it's curling up. They are very small. I still think it's worth it to put them on, even though if you are a follower of mine, you know how I feel about teeny tiny dies. So if you are a person who struggles like with dexterity and like something that little, maybe try using like a crystal katana, like a gem picker with a little wax tip. Those might be helpful. Or just color the edges of those leaves lighter and leave off those lighter or those smaller pieces. I don't think it would make that big of a difference. For the lily pad, it's very ruffled. And so you can see me putting lots of little triangles of color in there in order to achieve that kind of up and down float look that you would see in lily pads. This is the same technique you would use for ruffles in a dress, just putting in those little triangles of color. Now, I will tell you the top portion where I just colored it solid green, I'm not adding any shading there because my flower is going to sit there and it doesn't matter. So I just colored it in green to make sure that, you wouldn't be seeing any white peeking through or anything like that. And then we're going to put this one together and we will move on to the larger water lily. So yeah, we have a very sassy little 2-year-old. And for some reason, like I said, she hasn't woken up from a nap in a while, so she must just really not be feeling great. But then yesterday, Eric's family had a Kentucky Derby party. So she went to that as well. And then when she got home, girlfriend would not go to sleep. Like, I mean, it's not like she got home and then we put her directly to bed. Like, we gave her a little bit of downtime. Um, she just was not feeling it. So we have got to do something. We're pretty routine with her bedtime, with both our kids' bedtimes. And, when Nathan was younger, he always kind of, when he was her age, he had a routine that we did. But it seems like maybe our routine is not working that well for us anymore, and maybe we need to adapt. So back to the research I go, trying to figure out what would be a good plan for us, just because it's taking her so long to fall asleep. And we still currently, and to each their own, like no judgment, we currently still sit in her room until she falls asleep. And some nights that's 20 minutes and some nights it's 2 hours. And so I know that's our own fault for getting into that habit. Like, I can take ownership of that. And now that she's getting a little bit older and she can talk and we can explain things to her, it may just be time that we're like, us sitting in the room is no longer helpful. It's now more of a handicap for her. And so we may need to just switch up what we're doing, in order for her to successfully fall asleep at night. We will see how that goes. So here we're doing the larger water lily the same way. But remember when I said, like, it's tricky with the shading? So because this is going to fade off into white, you don't actually want to cover your whole line with the darkest color. You just want to put it down at the bottom. And there's going to be one, I think it's this one, where I kind of forget myself. Yep, there it is. And I took it all the way up. And immediately I was like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. It should not be that dark that high up because it fades into white. So there isn't really anything I can do about it outside of trying to lighten it up. And I don't think it's horribly noticeable in the finished flower. But if this is something that you're doing, whatever color, whatever you are coloring, if you're trying to get it to fade to white at the top, just make sure you're paying attention to where you're putting your shading lines, because it wouldn't be that dark that high up. It's not the same as a flower, like the faux zinnia, that's what we're going to call it, where, the shading would come all the way up the sides. This one fades to white, so it just wouldn't be that dark that high up. So otherwise, we're coming up on the end of the school year for peanut butter. We've had like the new school meetings and things like that. All of his kind of end of the year things are, starting to come together and come out. And I don't know how I feel about it. There's a part of me that's very sad that he is leaving elementary school behind. For those of you who have been following me since the beginning of my channel, you will definitely understand how I feel. He has been a guest designer on the channel, back when he was singing about sweaty pudding, and I think he was maybe 5 at that time, and I already had the channel. Maybe he was Caitlin's age when I first got the channel, but now, like today, for example, when Eric took Caitlin swimming, he didn't want to go, but while he was gone, he cut the grass by himself. Like, he went out there and cut the grass. Like, I have a child who's old enough to be responsible around machinery. It's wild, man. I don't know that I'm ready for it. But then also with the end of the year things comes his birthday. His birthday is at the end of May. So he always picks a theme for his birthday. Both, when they're little, I pick it, but as they get older, I, always let them choose. And he has chose Ford Ford truck theme, which I don't know if you know, but they don't make a lot of birthday Ford themes. So I'm having to get real creative. We'll see how it goes. Pray for me. So now those are done. These are the things I used for the background. This is the waves layering stencil. I also used the lattice top plate and bottom plate. I used 2 embossing folders. One is Sandy's Garden and the other one is, I think it's Let's Party? I think it is. I'm going to double check it. I'm going to double check it for you guys. No, it's Soiree. That's my bad. So for 2 of them, they needed a little bit of color in the background. This blue one, I'm kind of trying to mimic a sky here, and I'm just using the largest blending brush from Honeybee. And this is going to go behind my lattice on my B card. And then this one, super sped up. Okay, I definitely don't ink blend this fast. This one is the background for my water lily. And so I'm just doing kind of like a little halo, my lightest color all over, and then the Mermaid Lagoon, and then the Uncharted Mariner just on the edges. And I do my ink blending twice. I feel like that gives me the best result. And then I will do my stenciling over top, since I wanted my dragonfly to be, well, and my flower, I guess. You know, they're kind of, they create the focal point. I wanted the waves to be very subtle. I didn't want them to be stealing the show. So when I did the waves, there's 2 stencils in this one as well, a base and then a top. I only used the Salty Ocean. And this way it kept it nice and light. There wasn't a huge amount of contrast. It's still visible, but nothing too crazy. If you prefer not to do stenciling, they also have a waves pierced cover plate that you could use with those. So this is the card I'll put together. I did choose to put them, like glue them together kind of off camera. I stamped all of my sentiments in black on white, and then for the Happy Mother's Day, I cut that out with the coordinating die, and for the ones that say for a special mother, I just cut them into labels. And these will be part of the cards. Well, all of these cards will be donated for the babies, the moms of the babies in the NICU. So far I'm up to 13 cards. I need 20. Here, I'm just going through and looking at my gemstones. I ultimately ended up going with the Aurora Borealis one, which is one of my favorites because it matches everything. That sale, I should mention, it's not like we're like 2 minutes to done, but that sale for Honeybee is still going on for the gems, the wax stampers, and the paper pads. So if you're interested in picking up some of those, now's the time to do it. For the bee with the pansy, I just stacked the cover plates on top of that blue background that we ink blended, and then added the die cuts on top, as well as the sentiment. And then I used, I think it's the Happy Hearts rhinestones or gem stickers. I think that is the one that I used for that. They're all good. Like, really, truly, they're all good. For the hummingbird, here's that purple flower. I told you I swapped them out. And for the hummingbird, I also used the Happy Hearts, the same blue ones, actually. And then I did add just a little bit of white gel pen to this flower. Like, up until the bitter end, I kept messing with it, guys. Like, I just kept messing with it. I went in and added some pink to the tips because I thought, like, that would make me like it better, so that there was, like, pink in the bird and pink in the flower. I don't know if that's true or not, but I finally decided that it was good enough, close enough for government work. And then what was the other one? The hummingbird, I used both of those. Oh, the coneflower, I used, can't remember. We'll link it below. Let's Party, maybe? But anyway, here's a final look at all the cards. I'm really happy with the way that they came out. They are obviously 4 separate cards that we've shoved into 2 videos. So I know that they're long. I appreciate you guys bearing with me during the making process. I hope that this was helpful to you. And again, check out that sale. Also, I will link the other videos that I had mentioned. Thank you guys so much for your time. I always appreciate it. And I will catch you on the next video. Bye.